Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Carol Earnhardt, and I am the chair of the Advocacy, Collaboration, and Access Committee. And we have been meeting for 2 or 3 months now and talking about a series of webinars that we want to do this year under the umbrella of the North Carolina American Choral Directors Association. And one question in one of our first meetings was, what do you need as a choir director most of all? And it was, how do I recruit and retain students, was the answer by at least 3 of our committee members. So we are so happy to welcome Jeannie Graham, Bethany Jennings, Justin Johnson, AJ Calpo, and Erin Schwarz. Ann Saxon will join us later. We have some little technical difficulties that were totally my fault, so she's going to join us later. And Ashton Humphrey will not be with us tonight. He had something come up and he can't join us tonight. So we're going to start by going around the to our panelists and having them tell you, well, you see their name on the webinar, but their name, where they're from. We're all from North Carolina. There are people from out of state joining us tonight, but where you're located within the state. And then we especially want to know what kind of choirs you conduct. Like, are you a high school choir director, middle school, church choir, community choir? What kind of representation do we have in the room? So we'll start with you, Erin.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Erin Schwarz. I'm originally from Winston-Salem. I am currently teaching at Sun Valley Middle School, which is in Union County, just outside of Charlotte. Before that, I spent 4 years teaching at North Gaston High School on the other side of Charlotte, but happy to be over at the middle school side of things now.
Erin, how many years have you been teaching?
This is year 5.
Year 5. Okay. AJ?
My name is AJ Calpo. I am the choral and piano instructor at Sun Valley High School, outside of Charlotte in Union County. And Erin and I were just right next to each other. And then before that, I taught in Gaston County as well at Bessemer City High School.
Right. And so how long have you been teaching, AJ?
This is year 6.
Year 6. Okay. Hi, Justin. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Justin Johnson. I'm originally from Summerville, South Carolina, and I teach high school choir at South Caldwell High School in Caldwell County, which is on the other side of Hickory going towards App State.
And how long have you been teaching?
This is my 4th year.
4th year. So we've got 3 pretty new teachers, right? All right, Bethany.
Are you saying I'm not new, Carol? Because
you're wiser than those other 3.
No, I'm Bethany Jennings. I teach high school at Stuart Kramer High School, just west of Charlotte. I've been there for 9 years, but this is my 16th year of teaching. I have 3 choirs there, a 9th grade choir, predominantly 10th grade choir, and 11th, 12th. But I also work part-time at the First Presbyterian Church in Gastonia and have a Handel choir and the Sanctuary Singers, the adult choir there too. So
I love handbells. Jeannie.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Graham, and I am the high school choral director at North Buncombe High School. That is just about 15 minutes north of Asheville, so very close to Marshall University, for those of you who've traveled that way for the Marshall Choral Festival. This is my 24th year of teaching, and I've been in the same school for 24 years.
Wow, and you're still at the school at 8 o'clock. You and Justin.
Well, I came in to sit in on the musical rehearsal tonight, and I thought it would just be easier for me to do that and then come straight into my classroom. So,
right. Gotcha. All right, Ann.
Hi, I'm Ann Saxon. I direct the Winston-Salem Girls Chorus, which is a graded audition community choral program in Winston-Salem. We were the Central Carolina Children's Chorus for 16 years, and then changed to all girls in 2016 as Winston-Salem Girls Chorus. So we're now in our 23rd year of that. We have 3 levels of choirs, training choir, intermediate, and advanced. And next year we're adding a little Firefly group for kindergarten first graders. I also am the director of the children's choirs at Centenary United Methodist Church, which is downtown in Winston-Salem. And with that, we have a graded program of kinder music, handbells, hand chimes, and I get to direct the upper elementary group with that one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being here tonight. When we were looking for people to be on this webinar, we wanted people with different levels of experience from different areas of teaching and choir conducting. And hopefully we have done that. But, you know, someone made the comment within our committee that it doesn't matter if you're from church, community choir, or high school. Recruiting ideas are great ideas for anybody that you can use anywhere. So we're going to play a little popcorn game to start this off, because this is what everybody's here for. So let's just get it out of the way. I need to know your best recruiting idea. This is the kicker. If someone mentions it before you get your turn, you can't do that one again. You've got to give an original idea. Okay. All right. So who wants to start? And there you go.
My nose.
Anne can go first. So what's your best recruiting idea, Anne?
It's difficult to say with community choir because I counted up right now. We have 26 on our roster. We, you know, post pandemic start. And I have 19 schools and areas represented, about 6 different zip codes. So we don't have the in-house thing with recruitment that a lot of schools do, you know, within their county systems and so on and so forth. So we draw kids from homeschools and all different kinds of setting. So the best one for me is I go to the county music teacher meeting at the beginning of the year, and I take refreshments and just one-on-one get to know those teachers in that classroom, offer my support, accompanying services. I'll be glad to come to your school, you know, help you out with anything, and get to know them really well. Plus I get my 1-minute commercial and my flyers are there. So that's, it takes time, a lot of time to build those community bonds and relationships, but that seems to work the best for me.
Yes. And if you've ever had any of Anne's refreshments in North Carolina, they are all homemade. And sometimes you get a bottle of wine in your bag of refreshments. So great
I
idea.
can help you sleep at night.
Alcohol's awesome. Okay. So who wants to go next?
I'll go.
Okay, Jeannie.
So one of my best recruiting tools that I have found over the last few years that have worked, and we'll see if it works this year to see what the numbers come in when those rising freshmen sign up, is that I go over to our middle school choir program, but I don't do a formal program anymore. I go and I take warm-ups and I take fun songs and we kind of group up. We don't do a formal concert in concert attire, and we just try to get to know each other that way. But I also drop off goodies to the middle school choir teacher, little things like this year I did moon pies. I had many moon pies and I wrote on them, I'd be over the moon if you took chorus next year, for all the 8th graders. I left Kool-Aid jammers and said, can't wait to jam with you in chorus next year. I've used peppermints. You were meant, M-I-N-T, meant to be in chorus. And it's, you know, they're little things and they're not very expensive, but I think we all as teachers, we enjoy getting free things, and we always get that swag bag wherever we go. So just that little thing, when I go over, they see my face, I engage with them. And I found that just that one-on-one, or that not one-on-one, but that kind of often I go over more than once and I keep going, it really has made a difference. So I don't think it's really about what I'm taking as much as it is just that I'm making the effort to go and get to know them and meet them. So
without the pressure of a performance. I like that. Yeah. All right. Who wants to go next?
Okay.
All right, Erin.
Go ahead, Bethany. Oh.
Go ahead, Erin.
Right. So I'm at the middle school level, and something unique about moving over here, and I know that not every middle school does this, but I teach 6th grade on the wheel. So every 6 weeks I get a new batch and I teach a whole 6th grade, which has been great. But something I plan on doing now that registration is about to open up, we do it late, it's like in April, is emailing letters to parents of those kids that really had a good time, and inviting them to their children to be a part of the year-long 7th grade choir, the select 7th grade choir that's starting next year. Because, you know, if you can get those parents involved in anything that is their child has been selected to get into, then your parents are going to have your back. So that's something that I plan on doing this year.
That's a great idea. Great idea. Bethany?
So for me, I've only done this once, so I don't know if it's my best, but I did not have as many freshmen this year sign up from 8th grade to the high school, because for lots of reasons, mainly the pandemic. But in November and December, I had freshman Fridays. So I got permission from our principal. Our school starts at 8:30, but the doors open at 7:50. So any of my current freshmen were allowed to bring any other freshmen into the room from 7:50 to 8:25. And I had hot chocolate packets and just hot chocolate, and just met them. And I said that if they could sing happy birthday to me, even though my birthday's in September, that they could have a Hershey bar. And so I had 10 join in January, and that was just from freshman Fridays. So
That's awesome.
I will do it again.
That's awesome. Now I'm going to come back to Bethany because she has a great idea for church that I want her to share with you. But I'm going to come back in case AJ or Justin have that same idea. I don't want to take it away from them. Okay. All right, Justin, go ahead.
I would say this year, okay, can I just give two? Like, okay, so during COVID, sorry, I know I'm that person. During COVID, we did a video, and the video really helped. You know, social media is a huge thing right now. And so we made an iMovie, and that really helped. We had every kid say one word that described our choral program. And that really helped because it was coming from their mouths. But I think our number one thing this year has been our school district did this thing where every 8th grader, no matter what you were signed up for, came to the high schools, and they got to spend 20 minutes in like each little division, our masonry or in our choir and our band. And we got a lot of people that way we let them sing Sunday service choir with us, just some hand clapping and moving left to right, some step touching, and we let them hear the honors ensemble. And that really was something that everybody was like, oh my goodness, that was so cool. So I would say as much as you can get them into your classroom, it's something that really, really works if your school district allows that to happen.
Right. Great idea. AJ?
I used to do this a lot in other schools, but currently, since Erin's just down literally next door, I had my seniors write letters to the rising 8th graders, and we just sent them all out. And it was really personable, and there were like pages for one girl. And I think that really touched home. I think we're hopefully going to get more coming up. And then also coming down to Erin's school is also very beneficial, like helping out with the guys with their voice changes, or helping out with a little musical if I can. And just showing face that I'm there, introduce myself, what we have at the high school, how you can get involved, really selling to them, like, you know, high school's big, and the best way to know people that are not your grade, since you know them already, is to join a multi-level class like chorus. And that really helps them and get, I would like to know more people in high school rather than just myself or like my other friends.
Right. That's really cool.
If I can tag on, it works because we got all of my 8th graders to sign up for chorus next year, except for one. So like him coming to the high school and writing the letters, it really made a huge difference.
That is awesome. That's awesome. And it's really cool that y'all are next door to each other, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, usually, my main, most of my kids come from a middle school that's close. I can't walk to it, but it's close by. So I'll have to tell you something that I've done, because it seems like everybody mentioned food in some way. Most people did. I had a kid who was the son of an elementary music teacher, and I'd already had his sister, and I knew they were Moravians, so I knew Moravians love to sing, but I could not get him to sign up for chorus. I said, listen, come to my classroom. I'm going to buy you lunch from Bojangles. Bojangles is like within walking distance of our school. I had him pick out the lunch he wanted, and he sat in my classroom during his lunch, ate his Bojangles. And by the time we were done, he asked his third period teacher if he could stay the whole period so he could sing with us. So you're right. I think Justin said, get them in your classroom, in some way, have them in there to see what the day-to-day looks like. Bethany, for church choir directors, can you please share, you probably don't, do you know what I'm talking about?
I hope you're gonna help me here.
The commercials, because I'm always telling people,
Yeah.
if you, I'm a community choir director, by the way. I do a large community choir in a town nearby here.
Mhm.
And when people, and I say, you should come and sing in my community choir, or you should sing in my high school choir, the first thing they say is, I can't sing, right? And I always say, well, everyone can sing in a choir. Not everyone is a soloist, but everyone can sing in a choir. And this is how Bethany proves it to people. Go ahead, Bethany.
So, and I do this at school too. So when I had a minute for a music ministry, I said, okay, we're going to have an audition, and we're going to audition right now. And so this is in the worship service. And I say, I'm going to sing something. I want you to just finish my sentence. And I'll say Red Robin, and then the whole room goes yum, and I'm like, very good, all right, let's do another one. I say, every kiss begins with, and then they say praise. That's right. Maybe Carol, you can finish mine, or I'll say we are farmers.
Dum da dum dum dum.
Yeah. And so there's one, particularly in my church, I would do nationwide is on yours side. And then one of the men in my choir, he's also owns his own insurance company, so I always say Tom Watson is also on your side, and so it gets the congregation laughing. But I do this at school too, and there's tons of these little jingles that the kids can finish, even like for older people, you can do the Folgers commercial from several years ago, or the 800-588-2300
and 5 and
today, and so that's how I just can prove, that's how I choose to prove to audiences and at church and school that everybody sings, everybody can sing, and that's so we do that. I've got a whole list. I'm happy to share.
Yeah. And that takes the pressure off of audition. When people hear audition, they're just like, they fall apart. And you'll say, it's fine, just sing a song. And they will spin. You can see the smoke coming out of their ears, them trying to think of a song to sing, So I guess you guys have answered this, but, in the past, I have traveled to different places the year before and taken Carowinds trips and gone to Florida and New York and things like that. So how do you feel about the fact that this spring you have, some of you may be traveling. We are doing Allstate and we're doing Carowinds, but we didn't travel last spring, and I just felt like I was so nervous about that. What are your thoughts about that? Have you seen that maybe it doesn't matter that much, or we're missing that this year, or anybody want to answer that? Okay, Anne?
Since we're kind of very different as a community choral program, and our tour to New Orleans was canceled and all of that stuff, and we didn't get to do the highlight things of the year. So I've just learned to speak my passion, just talk about my choir, and people say, wow, your face lights up when you talk about that. I'm like, I just love these kids, and we just have so much fun. They come together and we create such beautiful music together. So I think just speaking your passion, being very authentic in that kind of, rubs off to people, and not just, adults, but younger people too, because they just seem excited if you're excited about it. That's a lot of times all I have is my little elevator speech of, you need to come sing with us. I recently posted a meme on Facebook, or shared one, that it said the world and everything was burning up on fire. And it said me, and the next caption, it said, anybody want to join choir? And that's the way I feel like I'm always that voice out in the wilderness. But it does work to just say, oh, hey, we're here and we still have something going.
Yeah. Recruitment is such hard work. Don't you guys think so? It really is. So it is hard work and it wears us out. And AJ said a while ago, he was talking about how his students wrote letters and one girl wrote several pages. So how else do you guys use your students' talents and include them in the recruiting process? Justin?
So part of our choral officers is I have 2 middle schools that feed into my program. So we have recruitment coordinators, 2 students one comes from each middle school. And usually I try to get one who maybe is like strictly all chorus, and then somebody who might also play a sport. So right now I have a girl who's on the basketball team and she's also in our honors chorus. And then another girl who just works her tail off and she's in honors chorus as well. And so they can go back and talk to their middle school people. They also talk to their teams and to the other students around the school. And so I feel like that's been one of our biggest things, is just being able to use them and it's only the first year we've had recruitment coordinators. But that's really helped a lot to have 2 students whose sole purpose is to recruit. They come with me to schools, all kinds of stuff like that. And they really have locked in on that, and they're vlogging our trips and they're taking pictures. We have a Choral Drive folder where they can just dump pictures. Any pictures they take during class, I do let my kids have their phones. So any pictures they take during class, candid shots, the people out in the movies, they can just dump all that stuff into a folder and everybody can see it whenever they want to. And that helps.
Yes. There was one of the participants just put in the chat that I have all of these silly officer positions. This one makes so much more sense. Thank you. It gives them something to do and to own. I love that, Justin. Great idea. So do they go to the middle school by themselves, or you're always with them when they go?
They want to go to the middle schools by themselves, but it's kind of hard. I mean, now they all drive and so they can do that. And so I think next year we're going to try to let them go to the middle schools by themselves. Mm-hmm. But right now they just come with me. Or when we did all the 8th graders coming in, they talked to those 8th graders before we sang. So they got to talk about all the stuff that was important to them. And I think it was really pertinent to have somebody who was on a sports team to go, Mr. Johnson's going to work around your sports schedule, but we still want you in here. You can still do all your sports and do chorus. And I'm also the track and field throwing coach. So that helps a little bit as well.
Right. Justin, you're so smart. I'm thinking about when I took my choir to sing at the middle school this year, we had a little time left. And I thought, oh, okay. Anybody want to say anything? And so some of the kids were saying some beautiful stuff, right? But I have 3 freshman boys in my audition choir. And I thought, well, we're talking to 8th graders. I'll have a freshman talk. So I said, Tyler, what have you loved about chorus this year? And he says, So you prepare your students. You're the one talking. Yes. That's a good idea.
They're ready to go as soon as you're ready. They already know what they're going to say.
Right. Bethany, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I was just going to say a couple things. I used to, when I would take my students to the middle schools, of course, everyone wear their chorus t-shirt and jeans, but a couple of years ago, I stopped doing that. I don't want them to wear their chorus t-shirt necessarily. If they're on the soccer team, I want them to wear their Stuart Kramer soccer shirt, or their cheer shirt, or their football jersey, or their theater shirt, because I think for some reason, at least in our area, there's this perception that you can just do one thing. And I'm just trying to dispel that myth when my students do go over to, see the middle schools, which unfortunately has been a while because of the pandemic. But I want them to see them in other gear, still Stuart Kramer, of course, but that they can do more than just chorus. And kind of in the same vein, if I ever get an audience of middle schoolers, I always try to always have my boys sing something by themselves, something really manly, something that features the really low singers, basses, and then tenors, and I let them be really silly as long as it fits in the context of the piece, because in my experience, boys recruit boys. So
yeah. We've talked about going into the middle schools, but something that I haven't done a lot of, and I started doing during the pandemic just because it seemed to be a little more convenient during hybrid and online teaching for some reason, I don't know, but is visiting students within your school. So Jeannie has some thoughts on this about recruiting from the middle school directly and recruiting from in the school, and which is more effective, and what are some of your ideas about recruiting within your school?
So one of the things I did this year, and I thought it was kind of crazy to do it, but I decided to create a choir out of I have a SATB choir that is freshmen through seniors, and it's my advanced choir, and my chamber choir of women are my top group at North Buncombe, mainly because I've never had enough male singers consistent year to year to create that group. So I created a new group and took them to MPA, which seemed silly, but it has really paid off, because all of a sudden I have so many more people interested. Like, how can I get to be a part of that group? And I named them the Black Hawk Voices. Just a whole different spin. And what we're going to do now, once our musical is over and we have some more time, we're going to start having, like, maybe twice a month, like some choir mingles. I've done some choir mingles before. Like, we had one at Halloween one year, we had one at Christmas, where anybody in the school can come after school. We provide the snacks, we provide the games, the activities, fun songs, just so they can come with their friends and see what chorus looks like. Because I think they know what it is. And maybe that's a positive, maybe it's a negative to them. But once they come in and some friends invite them in and they see that we're just normal people who really like to sing, they're more interested than in joining. So I'm going to use that new created ensemble. It gives my tenors and basses a challenge that they're missing in that advanced chorus, to sing SATB music with my chamber choir, who always sings SSAA. So it's really good for them, but it's also, I'm going to use them because they're also my strongest singers. So, we can put together some things. So that's one thing I'm trying to do. One of the things that we do in our district that's been extremely helpful, and it's a ton of work, but we have a district concert. So every school, the high school, all the elementary, the middle school, we all come together. We have not done this since the pandemic. That was the last performance we gave in March of 2020. And all of the parents come, and we have it in a local church, because literally we had 1,000 people at that concert.
Wow.
We filled the church completely. So everybody in one space got to watch each other perform. So elementary kids watched high school, and high school watched elementary. And it was important. We did it at the middle school, but we couldn't all be in the same space. So the kids didn't see each other. But what I think is the most important piece of that is that the parents see the progression from elementary to high school. And they're the ones who are going to talk those kids off a ledge when they're like, I don't know if I want to do choir again. And they'll be like, but remember how cool that is when you get to high school, or when you get to middle school, when you've been in elementary school or an intermediate school. And then we do a combined piece. Everybody learns a piece. And like one year, Laura Hintz, who's our middle school director, had gone to Wingate and had gone to South Africa with Kenny Potter. And so she actually taught an African piece, and she conducted it. One year I picked a piece and I conducted. So it's just a way for the kids to see all of us sing together. And it would be like 300 people on stage at one time. It's a chaotic, it doesn't look perfect, but it achieves that picture of what it looks like to start and finish in choir all through the district. So that's been a really helpful thing as far as something that's not just going to your local middle school or whatever your next feeder is, but everybody can see everybody together.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. It does sound a little chaotic, but it's fun chaotic, right, Jeannie?
Right.
Yeah, and that sort of pushes us into the next part of this webinar, which is retention of students, right? And so, in your opinion, at this point in time, do you think efforts should be focused more on recruitment or retention? Or do you feel that the two share equal importance, and why? AJ, you want to answer this one?
Yeah, so my program's a little bit different than most. I teach gender split in the fall, and in the spring they get mixed back in together, and it's supposed to be concerts supposed to be 11th and 12th graders, and then mixed courses would be 9th and 10th. So the transition into the next semester is like super important that they stay, because that's how I plan everything out, and I build their voices in the fall in the hopes that they'll stay. And so a lot of the work I've been doing now has just been building a culture, and then also trying to maintain the kids that are there, but also recruit from the middle school to supplement all those now 10th graders that are going to be 11th graders that will switch into the next choir. And so I think they're equally both important in different ways. And recruitment is great, but you also have to keep care of the kids that are there, that are the ones that are keeping everything the same. And Dr. Potter and I had a very good conversation about choral sound, and just like, if I have a core group of kids in that room that will always be there, having a core group of sound, anyone I throw in is going just to adapt and just going to lean in, and then we can grow from there. And then it's just, exponential growth after that. But it really comes down to make sure everything in the house is great, and then we can go everything outside the house and build from there. That's my thinking about recruiting and retention.
Right.
Because if they love it enough, they'll do everything else for you. They'll recruit, they'll talk to their friends, they'll bring people in. I bombard them with 20 million questions if it's a new person I've never seen before. So it's just all around dynamically. Like, you have to do everything, like we haven't already.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. But I am finding, like, this year and in the past few years at Glenn, at the high school where I teach, there's so much offered. Like, we now have the Fireman's Academy. Kids are being pushed towards AP. Our arts department is huge, and we have this fairly new theater teacher who is like got tech theater and honors advanced theater, and I have had already 3 kids. I had 3 kids this past week and said, I can't do chorus next year, Mr. Hart, because I'm doing this. And I usually have them hold their fingers up, because I know they get 8 classes and we count their classes off, but many times it's that they can get their nurse practitioner license, not nurse practitioner. Oh Lord, no. The nursing thing. What is that?
CNA.
Yeah, CNA, before they leave high school, and so you're like battling with that all the time, that with kids that are spread so thin, but that retention in 4 years is like it. They've got to see that it's important how they grow, like Jeannie said, showing that. So Michelle Sullivan has her hand raised, but I don't know how to answer a hand raised in a webinar. Michelle, I'm so sorry. Can you put there it is. I see. She says same, capstone AP, cohort, CTE, CNA, Fire Academy. It's insane. It's great that our kids have all these opportunities, but it challenges us in retaining students. So Anne, I know that you've done a lot of collaborations in the past. And of course, as the chair for the Advocacy Collaboration and Access Committee, collaborations are really important, I think, for retention. So can you talk about collaborations you have done that have been helpful in retaining students?
I think the biggest thing is when we're all together. We recently had a showcase event we haven't had in 3 years. And that is, people can do a solo. Everybody wants to do a solo, and we're choir. We maybe have 3 solos a year and they all get mad at you if they can't do it, you know. So this is your opportunity to sing a solo, and then the choirs all sing. We have dinner, and there's a silent auction on the side, but you get to see all of the different levels. We're all together. It's fun. The kids are aside. They have their separate meal of pizza and brownies, and it doesn't matter how old they are. They think that's really great. We always sing something together, you know, and we'll pair choirs here and there. Sometimes, like for our Christmas concert, it's a community concert, we'll bring in an elementary school with a large program, or like Piedmont Chamber Singers, do something together with them, just to see a bigger depth and breadth of things. But, you know, you can never do enough in collaborating, but you still need to make sure that you guard, like I think AJ was saying, you know, take care of in-house first and get that really strong, and then reach out more and more for that.
Right. Kathy Youngblood posted a question in the chat. Do you have any suggestions for adult community choirs? Am I the only adult community choir director in this group? I think that I am. Now, Bethany has adults in her church choir, but adults like food too. Food has been mentioned several times, but Kathy, I use social media a lot. And we have a person on our board who handles our social media and handles our website and posts performances. But we have to get out in the community. And my community choir before COVID was 70 to 80 people. And we did 2 concerts a year, one at Christmas and one in May. And we hire an orchestra. I think if we can get people come to the concerts, and having that orchestra there and spending that money on that orchestra enhances the sound so much and makes people want to join because they want to sing with the orchestra. But also we sing at baseball games, we sing at holiday events, the Christmas tree lighting, a tour of homes in December, just to get our name out there. We're a member of the Chamber of Commerce, and had a ribbon cutting for our group and try to stay active with the Chamber of Commerce, and also do community, help out community things like in Kernersville, we have a trick or treat thing where they shut down Main Street, but they got to have candy. And so we get candy donations from our choir members, and a board member puts stickers on it that says part of the Choral Society on that candy bag, just anything to get our name out there. So luckily with an adult community choir, you have a board, hopefully, that works with you and helps you do those things. Bethany?
I was just going to add, just because I don't have a community choir, but I do feel in some ways that a church choir, at least an adult church choir, is a lot of the same. So just 2 points. One about recruitment. To be fully transparent, right before the pandemic, I was worried that my church choir was just getting smaller and smaller, the adult choir. And so I didn't know if we would survive during the pandemic, but what I did was, at my church, we had gone so long without singing, it was a dangerous thing to do. And I felt guilty. They didn't cut my pay or anything like that, but I just decided to do what I had done at church. And I hosted last summer, just 5 workshops over the course of 3 weeks on how to play the ukulele. I'd never played the ukulele, and I borrowed them from my school. I was about 5 lessons ahead of them. And we had 50 people in my church signed up for those workshops. And even people in the community came, and we opened it to whoever, and they were all ages. I think the youngest, we had an 8-year-old came, and then our oldest was well above 80. And I said, look, y'all, I don't know how to play the ukulele. I'm about 10 hours ahead of you, but let's just have some fun. And so they got to know me, and they got to know our church. And we had about 7 people from the ukulele workshop joined our church choir this past fall when we started singing. So that was just a huge lesson because I think singing is so personal. And while some people say I can't sing, they know they can, but choir sounds like such a spotlight event. And that's not really, especially in the church, is just not how that works. But so speaking of retention, I think is even harder I don't know about the community choir, but in church, it is every single Wednesday and Sunday. And it is really hard to get adults to commit to that when they're not being paid because of the time commitment. So if there's any way to chop your season up, teachers, we tend to think in semesters. But for my church choir, I kind of say, okay, for the next this many weeks, we're doing this is what we're doing. Or in our church, we do observe and celebrate Advent. So, okay, can you join us during the Advent rehearsals and then sing through the Christmas season? Or how about just the Lent season and then the Easter? And I try to chop it up into smaller sections, because I think for a lot of adults, especially those that are married and have kids, it's simply the time commitment, and they don't want to let one more person down. So if there's a way to chop up into smaller bites that are more digestible for people, I just think that our society as a whole, that's why we can't get kids to commit anymore, right? Because they've got no time. So that's just something to think about too. And I told Carol earlier, I don't know if I should be a panelist. More so, I'm just happy to be here to learn from everyone, because I'm having the same issues, whether it be at church or at school too. So I'm really thinking about how to chop this down as well.
I think we all are too. And we were talking about collaborations earlier. I think as an adult community choir, we have got to focus on collaborations, because I can tell you the high school teachers on this call would love to have a collaboration with a community choir and lets their kids know, hey, you can continue singing through adulthood, even if you don't go to church, So Erin, let me ask you this. How have your priorities changed musically from pre-pandemic to this point in the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that they definitely have changed. I'll start with kind of the more obvious things. I just started at a new school this year. So my first priority was to establish trust with these kids, because we think about all the times, I don't know if some of you have been told the same thing, but when I was young and before I had started teaching, a few people had said to me, they're like, oh, middle school is great. Middle schoolers will break down walls for you. They will do whatever. And while there is probably some truth to that statement, that does not happen automatically whatsoever. You have to get those kids to know that you have their back in every aspect. They have to know you have their back musically, socially, emotionally, mentally. Like they have to be able to trust you. Otherwise, you're not going to get squat out of them. So my first priority this year was just trust. They were timid. They were not comfortable with their true voices. A lot of my kids that were in my 8th grade choir, which was a year-long class, they said on the first day, they're like, I don't know how I got here. They just put me in the schedule. I've never done this before. I have to sing. We sing in here. So it's just getting them to trust. There was so much focus on fun at the beginning. This is not sponsored at all, but we use S-Cubed by Dale Duncan. You can get it on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it's been a great resource for us. It's lots of music literacy, but they think they're playing games, and they think that they're just trying to work together as a team to beat their teacher at some games, and they are practicing their solfege. So there's just being a cheerleader with everything. And we did so much rote singing this year. And this might be more for my middle school people than my high school people, but it might just apply to everybody. But I did not pull out octavos and just written sheet music with my kids this year until October, because there was so much groundwork that needed to be laid. So this year, my priority was not to rush them into what I thought was the traditional choir experience, and to just meet them where they were at and go from there.
Justin, thank you, Erin. Justin, how have your priorities about music changed? Erin says she's doing a lot of rote singing and not using octavos. How have your priorities changed?
So I think this is my 4th year teaching, and this is my 4th year at my school. And I think most people say that, you really don't get comfortable until your 4th year. And so for us, I don't want to make it sound like I'm being I don't know.
You go ahead. Go ahead.
Like we had been growing. I started at a school that had 48 people in 3 choirs, 48 people total. And so we had always been continuously growing. From 48, you're kind of like, that's your bottom usually. You're pretty close to almost getting something cut. And so we had continuously been growing. And what I realized was that my top group didn't want to stop. It wasn't, oh, Mr. Johnson, pandemic's happening, so I need to back off. There's no pandemic's happening. Let's keep going. Let's keep grinding. Let's keep figuring out what we can do better. And so what we did last year is we had AB days. I mean, we were in person. I know that's probably something that a lot of people didn't have, is that we were in person. We had kids came on Monday and Tuesday. There was a remote day on Wednesday, and then we had class Thursday and Friday. So we had a concert at the end of last year, in May. But we kept working. We kept working hard. And what that led to is when we finally all got back together, it was like, oh, it's really game time now. We're all here. Let's really do it. And so I want to say that we didn't back off. I didn't change anything. I said, let's keep going. And that's probably because I always treat my beginning choir like it's a fun choir. We dance, we hoop and holler, we do road singing, we play games, because I feel like that's how you hook people. That's how you hook them. Beginning choir doesn't have to be this required thing for me. And so for me, beginning choir is just, let's have fun, let's get you hooked. And so then the other 2 choirs are like, all right, let's work, even though pandemic's going on. So repertoire didn't change much. We did Can We See the Darkness to Light by Kyle Peterson last year. We did Ain't That a Good, No, Soon I Will Be Done by William Dawson. And so we didn't change much. I will tell you that I fully believe in rote singing. I think rote singing is a thing. I think oral skills is a thing as well. But I think that rote singing provides the ear more time to really figure out, where I fit in harmonies without looking at octavos and stuff like that, because I was a really bad person about that. If it's not on the page, I couldn't do it. And so I believe in rote singing a lot. And so I would say, and I don't think I'm the only one in North Carolina, that we didn't slow down. We actually made the pandemic make us push harder, but we just looked at music maybe a little bit differently, how it fit us emotionally and stuff like that, because for so many people, it was their saving grace. And if I would have slowed down, they wouldn't have had the same quality that they would have really, truly needed.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Jeannie, were you in the same situation? Did you get to have your kids in person all last year? Because you're in the western part of the state.
Right. We were virtual mostly in the fall. And then in the spring, we went to a sort of a AB day, and then students could either choose to come back or be hybrid. So we did sing last spring. We did not give an in-person concert because of our protocols, just didn't allow for that. But I did record music and I did do a video concert. So I think there was a sense of accomplishment for all of my students, and especially I wanted that for my seniors who were graduating. So we did not give an in-person concert, but we did do a videotape.
Yeah.
And one thing I would add, I've tried to keep my expectations for learning and for what we're going to do. I've tried not to compromise my expectations, but I will say that I have had to become more patient, more giving, more understanding when kids say, I can't take choir all year, where used to I might have said, but I need that. Now I'm like, I'd rather have them one semester than not at all. And that's not always the best thing for my choir, but it's where I'm trying to meet them where they are. And what I find is maybe it's always a junior year for me. I don't know. The junior year is always the year that they always come up against those completer courses and they can't retain both semesters, but they come back their senior year. I think if you give them a little grace when they need it, they understand that you're going to be human with them. And it's a hard balance because I like to push. I honestly don't know how to do it without pushing, but I'm trying to learn. You really can't push these kids right now. It's really hard to push as hard as I think we've probably all pushed in the past, because they really are emotionally not at the place where they can handle that, the stress on them. So I've tried to learn to sort of walk that balance between the two.
Even with my community choir, I had to rethink repertoire. For example, but prior to the pandemic, now I had taken a year off to work on a dissertation, but someone, Jonathan Sidden, did the community choir for me. And we were planning a trip to Prague and Vienna. And so we were learning all of this Beethoven music for a Beethoven 250th celebration. And so he planned a whole concert that spring with Brahms and Haydn. I mean, it was just all these great composers and all these, a lot of songs in German or another foreign language, right? I did a fall virtual season for my office, and we did a virtual concert with my community choir. Took the following spring off, started back this past fall and did like just a small audition choir. But the music that I picked for that small audition choir was nothing like we've been doing in the past, you know. And now this spring, I started off with, okay, we're going to do the Rudder Requiem and have a service of reflection and remembrance for those we've lost in COVID, but we're also doing the Beethoven because we're still taking that trip. And I had a board member look at me and said, Carol, I really don't think that we can do that. And she was right. There would have been no way. So I'm having to back off even with my community choir and say the things that we used to do before the pandemic, we have got to have a different focus now. And hello, Siri. And it's more about relationships within that community choir and everybody had just having a good time and not banging out notes and making sure we have this amazing concert. We want an amazing concert, but we want a meaningful concert. Anne?
I was going to say amen to that. I just had to learn to work with nothing but grace, love and grace and patience. And my numbers are down so that I can do 3-part. But if that one person is out at that one concert or 2 people, we can't do this part. So I just simplified things to that so that we could have success. And we should never apologize ever for having a beautiful unison sound.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much more that you can do with that. I went to MPA, played for several schools, and I kept hearing directors we're just only doing, grade 2 music or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I think it's fantastic you're here at all. I mean, who cares what grade of music you're doing? You've got these kids here and you're really serving your community through that. So it has been a season of grace. And we usually have, since we only meet once a week, we have a very strict attendance policy. And we just threw that out the door this year and said, if you have any kind of sniffle, stay home, we understand. It's been really hard for me to adjust to that, but my people keep coming and I hadn't had hardly anybody drop out all year, which I think is really great.
That's
but
awesome.
It is a season of grace.
It really is. It really is. Well, so this question is for Bethany and maybe AJ too. So how do you balance during the typical rehearsal with thinking about retention post-pandemic? How have you balanced music rehearsal and oral skills training and sight singing and having fun? How have you balanced that? Bethany?
At school or at church?
At church would be great.
So at church, I guess in my mind, I had this fear. I've been in church my whole life, but I've been in church work for just about 8 years, maybe 9. And I just had it in my mind that there's this tinge of guilt when I pull an anthem out that we've already sung. And so I try not to do a lot of repeating because we only sing one anthem a week. So but after the pandemic, I went back through and I was planning for, smaller numbers. So I was going back through and I just decided to choose the anthems that I remember that they really enjoyed, the choir really enjoyed, and that we had done before. And we just pulled one out 2 weeks ago. And I said, now y'all, we did sing this. And they're like, when? And I'm thinking, well, in 2016 in the fall, and they don't remember. But in my mind, as the musician, I'm thinking, yeah, we've done it. Don't you know this? And it's like they'd seen it for the first time and they loved it again. So my church choir taught me, when it comes, don't be afraid of repeating a piece, especially if it worked well and it really, textually for the church and then for the congregation. If people liked it, they really don't mind hearing it again or singing it again. And I think, if for the church choir specifically, when it comes to, shifting or changing, I think Anne hit the nail on the head when we talk about grace, and just kind of what the church is all about anyways. But it's just a whole new layer of that when you've got people who, might not be able to come to rehearsal. So I've tried to give them practice tracks. I've given them recordings of stuff. If they can't come to practice, then, of course, I don't want to say don't come Sunday morning, and just a whole lot of more space to allow for people to participate without being what we would consider in the past maybe 100% committed. It's just a different definition. I think, like Jeannie had said, like, I'm more patient and more understanding at the church for sure.
Right. AJ, how would you say that you have learned to balance things so that you retain students as it deals with oral skills training and preparing music and having fun and things like that? How have you balanced all of that?
So I normally do this thing at the beginning of the year, actually beginning of both semesters. It's just called a choral boot camp. And we just do a lot of things for like the whole 14 weeks. And really it's just to break down habits so that if I do it every single day for 14 days, I can break down some habits so that it can do the correct posture, the correct breathing, and all those things. But in the midst of that, we do a lot of team building things that really centered around me talking first and being them to respond to me only. And then I bounce it off around and we have fun. And then we learn some songs, and then we start dig into like oral skills, and then solfege, tuning, and then we have some repertoire, and then we keep going from there. And in the month time frame that as that happens, we have our informants. So I try to really build off giving them a good sense of community is one of my biggest factors. A lot of people like to build their choirs. Like sometimes they build it about them, unbeknownst to them, and sometimes they build it for the music, which is a really noble endeavor. But there's always a third one, and it's like I'm building it for them. I'm not building it for me. I'm not building it for the music. I'm building it for them to have a place to say, I love this so much. This is why I'm here. And I make it a big focus to, like, every single morning we have like a motto that we say every single morning or every single time before we start singing. And it's a non-negotiable. And then just having that sense of like, oh, we're here for this purpose and this purpose only kind of thing. So I had the lean off of, oh, sure, they can't really read rhythms that well, but they can definitely sing it back to me, and that's totally fine. And we can still have fun. I can still teach and teach them what they're doing. And then we move on. I lightly touch what we're doing and then keep going, rather than like, we'll sight read for 20 minutes and do this exercise on sight reading factory at level whatever. And I'm just like, no, did you get it? No. You want to do that again? Yeah, let's just do it one more time and then move on.
Yeah. I was just thinking about music literacy. Bethany said to me, I think in November, she said, Carol, we're just trying to find dough. We're trying to find dough. And so it had just been like, you just had to sort of back away from everything and say, okay, we just got to take this as it is, meet the kids where they are. So yeah. Guys, I just want to thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm Martha Brown. Hello, Martha. Put something in the chat, and this is exactly the way I feel listening to all of you speak. Martha says, my numbers are down too. Grace, patience. Thank you for this. I needed this. I am weeping because I am not alone. And I think that when our committee envisioned this, it was, we know that everybody's going through the same things, but we don't really spend time having a meeting in the teacher's lounge. Don't you wish you could have a meeting in the teacher's lounge with just music teachers and just spill your guts out? It would feel so good. So I know that there are a lot of people on here that are like, thank God I'm not the only one who feels that way. Bethany needs to move her Bethany needs to move her right. Her halo is off center. The mirror behind you, make sure, yes. Thank you, Bethany. Bethany does have a halo, not just when she's in front of the mirror. So I do want to thank my committee members, and some of them are on here tonight. Brandon Wimbush, Ashley Brady, Mignon Dobbins, Laura Sam, Robert Summerall, and Nicole Somber. And a big thank you to Robert Summerall, who came up with a list of questions for this webinar. So thank you so much, Robert, for that. And thank you all again for everything that you've done. And Martha, make sure you read the chat. Bethany left you a message. So you guys have a great night and happy singing for the rest of this week. Thank you so much.